today, for instance, I'm doing 5 interviews for Paradise Lost and 4 interviews for Vampire. So yeah, it's quite busy at the moment.
I can imagine. Does it ever happen before? At the same time, there was a release of the Paradise Lost release and Vampire. Or this is the first time?
No, this is the first time because usually I do Vampire when I have some time off from Paradise Lost. So I thought I had some time off, so I started writing the Vampire album, and then Paradise Lost signed to Nuclear Blast, and Nuclear Blast said, "We want an album."
Yeah.
So I had to start writing the Paradise Lost at the same time as the Vampire album. So yeah, it was just by accident really. I ended up doing them both at the same time.
I understand. How are you satisfied so far under the wings of Nuclear Blast?
It seems good. Like I say, it's very early days. I mean, the only people we've met so far are the Italian people and some of the German people. And that's it. That's all we've met so far. I mean, I met the owner of Nuclear Blast many years ago.
Yeah.
Because Nuclear Blast started around the same time as Paradise Lost, so it was all kind of small at the time from the same scene. But they seem like they know what they're doing. They seem like music fans, metal fans, which is always good because Century Media, one of the best things about them were they are essentially a bunch of metal fans, so it's not like being on a big corporate label or anything.
Absolutely. Well, I must say I really enjoy the album, and it's one of the rare cases where I received a new album coming out with such a distance. It's the 1st of June, and album will be coming out the 1st of September, so it's always a nice feeling to receive new music in such early days. But for you, it's also very fresh, as you just released it. Send it towards the press. So what are your first feelings from now? Is it a feeling I'm proud of it, or there's bits of that when musicians say, I don't want to listen to that for a while. I just lived with those songs for the past weeks.
No, it's not too. I mean, we finished the album probably a month ago.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And I didn't listen to it until I received the masters back, which was probably about a week and a half ago. So it's still very fresh to me, but I had enough time off from it. Yeah, I think it sounds great. It's exactly what we wanted it to sound like. I realised that it's maybe not as instant as the previous record, but that was all in the plan, really. That was all what we intended to do, But yeah, it's kind of strange doing press and stuff so early on.
Yes.
It seems like, wow, we've just finished recording and we're straight into interviews. It's never happened this fast before.
I can imagine even the writing had to be, right? Everything really fast. It's always really bad to ask about the pressure from Nuclear Blast. It's never, I guess, a pressure is being on such a level, but you really must have, went with all of the qualities that you have and to make it really fast. So was the songwriting and whole process also very compact and fast?
Yeah, I mean, we actually changed the way we write songs on the Played Within, on the last album.
Yes.
To try and streamline the way we write, because historically with Paradise Lost, I've just written a song, all the music, and just given it to Nick and said, right, sing over that. And that's it. And that's fine, but it's kind of time consuming.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're being precious about something. You're not open to change on it. And on the last record, and even more so on this record, we changed it to a scheme where I'll send Nick a couple of riffs and then say, can you try out as many different vocal styles as possible? So he'll try gruff singing, he'll try deep singing, he'll try clean singing, some harmonies and stuff. Then send it back to me, and then I completely build a track from scratch, like a jigsaw. And it just makes for a really intuitive, really fast way of writing. You can try lots of different versions of a song out in the space of a couple of days rather than waiting weeks to do it, So, yeah, I mean, this is the fastest we've ever written an album, I think. It took maybe 6 months to write, and usually we take over a year.
Yes. Exactly what you're saying. I can feel there is a big communication between you and Nick. I mainly had the peak of love for Paradise Lost around the album Fate Divides Us. it was an absolute masterpiece. I bought myself the craziest limited edition, and since that I'm following your career very deeply, and I must say the communication of you two guys on this album is absolutely brilliant. I feel you made up some incredible riffs, but it feels very compact, very together, and following each other's impulses. So exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, and we worked very, very closely. I mean, every day from morning till night we were in constant contact, just going backwards and forwards with it and saying, are we happy with this bit, are we happy with that bit, what can we do to make this part better? And I mean, what you say is very true, and it's good that you're getting that vibe from it, because it was the closest we've ever worked, I think, so partly because of the time period and partly because of this new way of writing.
Yes. But still, there are, at the beginning of, let's say, of each song, I feel there was a starting point coming from you. Let's say from The Gallows, that's probably my most favorite intro. Your guitar, absolutely brilliant. So you started with something, send it to Nick, get his feedback, and continuously working the ideas together, right?
That's right, but sometimes I would send him a couple of riffs, he would sing over it, send it me back, and then I'd decide to completely scrap what I sent him and build it again with the vocals. The track that you mentioned from The Gallows is unique to this album, actually. It's funny you should mention that album, because all the intro part of that song, the first half of this from The Gallows, was written in 1989.
Oh, wow.
I found it on an old cassette, an old live tape, and but unfortunately the second half of it was missing. So I had to write the second half of the song in 2017. So it's weird. It's like, what, 20 years apart? No, 30 years apart.
Wow.
Nearly. First half of the song and the second half of the song. So it's we were kind of amazed that we made it gel so well together, considering that it's so much time passed between the two halves.
Yes. But you said you found it on a almost lost tape. So how do you keep this collection of all those great ideas you had written there in 20 years ago, 15 years ago, live footages? How do you keep this collection all alive and safe from time?
I just keep all my cassettes. It's all cassettes, really. It's all just that I keep in a sealed plastic box that I've taken. Every time I've moved house, I've taken it with me. And I don't really listen to them or anything like that. It was just when I was preparing to write this new album, I just sort of went through some old demo tracks and really early rehearsal demos and things like that. I just tried to soak in the vibe of it all, and see, and I didn't even know that there was another track that we hadn't used yet. But then I found this track, and I was talking to Carl Willits from Bolt Thrower, actually, from Memorial.
Yes.
When we used to play with Bolt Thrower back in like '89 or whatever, we used to play this song live, which is now from The Gallows, but at the time it was called Hallowed Ground. And it was Carl Willits' favourite song. So then I dug it out and found it on this cassette, but like I say, I could only find the first half.
Yes.
So then I built it up again into a full song for this record. So it's kind of an interesting story, really, I guess.
Yes. It sounds as, sorry about that, it might sound as a hardcore cliche, but, going back to the roots, it doesn't hurt at all. Once in a while. I personally do that, every Christmas, go home and dig into the old boxes and getting motivated again for another work, even if it's usual work, daily work, or working on music. But I can really feel from that you went back to the roots, and talking about Bolt Thrower, that's really some really deep doom hard music, and this is exactly how the new album sounds to me. You mentioned about the album, it will be slow, sludgy, doomy. It's hardcore, slow and sludgy, to be fully honest. It's lovely.
Oh, well, I'm glad you like it. I mean, the record label didn't really know what to think when we first said, like...
I can imagine.
we want to do the first song as an 8.5-minute song, with like... The first riff is kind of like funeral doom.
Yeah.
Super slow. But no, they got it. As soon as they heard it, they were like, yeah, we get it. That you can't really put this song anywhere else in the album. It fits really well. So, and it doesn't really feel like 8.5 minutes to me, because we managed to make it flow quite well. So yeah, I mean, the whole plan, I mean, the plan for this record came really from the song Beneath Broken Earth from the last record. because that was the last song we wrote for The Plague Within. And we just really liked how it turned out, and we loved playing it live. And we just thought, maybe we should do a full album kind of along these lines.
Perfect.
So that's really where the idea came from.
Perfect. I can feel it absolutely. It was the first song that reminded me of, wow, these guys are actually going this direction. But if I'm not mistaken, and might be just my feeling, it's sort of the influencing you these days that you're heavily involved with Valenfire. Nick was also for a while in Bloodbath. It all makes sense that you're getting towards this slower and more deeper doom sound.
Yeah, I think the music that you're into in your teenage years is something that stays with you.
Yes.
On and off for all your life. I mean, even when we were doing the Host album, the really experimental stuff, you'll have days where you'll still go back and listen to the stuff from your teenage years. So it's something that you can't really get away from because it's something that's ingrained in you nostalgically. So yeah, inevitably some of this stuff was going to come to the surface again, and indeed it has done on this record.
Yes. One of the changes which has happened in the Paradise Lost is as by classic a change of a drummer. Tell us please about how did you discover Volturi? I guess you were cooperating with him as a live musician in Valenfire for a while, 2014, right? A bit of the Paradise Lost 2015.
Yeah, it actually happened because Adrian Erlandson was drumming in Valenfire and Paradise Lost.
Yes.
And then just after we recorded the Splinters album for Valenfire, which was 2014, Adrian said, I'm getting really busy with At the Gates and I just can't commit any time to Valenfire. So I decided to do an online audition. So I asked people through the Valenfire Facebook to sending a video of themselves drumming to a couple of Valenfire songs. And I just narrowed it down and eventually settled on Volturi. And then we did quite a bit of touring. We toured America, toured Europe, Southern Europe, Spain and Portugal and stuff. Did some festivals with Valenfire, with Volturi. And it's just fantastic. He's a very improvisational drummer. He never kind of plays the same song twice, if you know what I mean. He never plays the song the same, which I really like. And then the same thing happened with Paradise Lost, where Adrian said he just had too many projects.
Yes.
And we're still good friends with Adrian. It's just, his main job is a drummer. And if a band is having time off writing an album, he needs to go where the work is. He needs to go and play live. So it's understandable. So I suggested Volturi for Paradise Lost as well, and we tried him out. And everyone's happy with him. So he came to Paradise Lost through Valenfire, and now he's kind of in both.
So I guess his schedule is not that busy as Adrian's, and he can work both Paradise Lost, Valenfire, and what else? He's not involved in all the other bands, right? In his scheduled way.
Well, what we've said to Volturi is you have to prioritise Paradise Lost and Valenfire. So they're his two main priorities. But if there's nothing in the schedule for Valenfire or Paradise Lost, he can do whatever he wants. And I know he's been doing some stuff for Abhorrence in like a death metal band in Finland, an old death metal band. And he's been playing live for a couple of other bands. Yeah, it's understandable. That's a drummer's life, unfortunately.
Yes. Talking about also new album, I went through the ideas that the Nuclear Blast presented us of the ideas about each song, and I was just wondering what influenced a bit of if you were getting involved later in sort of some research of the topics, as I tend to read a lot historical books. It reminded me a bit of the book I read about the history of the devil, and in general, what might have influenced you for the mood and also for the lyrics, mainly from Nick's point of view, but in general, any sort of the research on these topics that you're presenting on the new album?
Well, it's kind of just topics of interest, where you sat around talking with each other, and certain topics come up, and you think, you say, oh, I've read this or I've read that. For instance, The Longest Winter was a thing where Nick read about Chernobyl and nature taking back that area of land. So it's it's just topics of interest and historic topics of interest as well. Things that people may read about and then tell someone else in the band about, and then we discuss it. So, yeah, I mean, I'd say the lyrical content on this album is more broad than previous albums. You know, it's usually a little bit more personal, I guess.
Yes.
And on this record, it's a little bit more global. You know, something that affects everybody.
Yes.
And I guess that's just a sign of the times. You know, I mean, there's lots going on in the world at the moment, so there's lots to write about. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I was feeling, that these topics we can apply to everybody, as I guess talking about the longest winter and feeling alive in hopelessness, we can relate it to everybody's feeling of loss, either personal or relationship, where we might fall into deepest depression but by feeling that way, we can actually find some hope and new goals for future. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the whole. I mean, in his lyrics, they seem pretty kind of dark and depressing, but there's usually a ray of hope in them. You know, it's usually, this is the only life we get, so make the best of it. You know. So there's always this chink of light in Nick's lyrics somewhere.
Yes. One point about the gods of ancient, there was an interesting point of not worshipping any sort of the religion, but worshipping sun, as it gives us heat, future, and why not global source of energy. We're still late in that area, but it reminded me of my most favorite stand-up comedian, George Carlin, when he was talking about him being a sun worshipper. So what about you and stand-up comedy, and possibly love for classics as George Carlin?
Yeah, George Carlin's great. I do like George Carlin. I'm also I'm a big fan of the English comedies like Alan Partridge and Saxondale and stuff like that. I don't know if you've seen any of them. Also, I've been liking the new Louis C.K. one that's on Netflix.
Perfect, yeah.
I think that's pretty good. But yeah, I mean, stand-up comedy is a bit of a weird thing, you know. I mean, some people might find something really funny and some people might not, you know. I think it's quite subjective as to what you find funny. I'd say as people, me and Nick tend to watch more just comedy shows, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, it's something that we watch together. I mean, when we were in the studio recording this record, we just watched Saxondale all the time. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Oh, never heard of that. I was thinking if some British classics, but personally, if I may say, I must say I hate Little Britain, but I personally love Come Fly With Me. It's from the same guys, from the airport environment, and as you travel a lot, you might have checked that out, isn't it?
I have, yeah, I like that, but you should really check Saxondale out.
All right.
It's about a guy who's an ex-roadie.
Oh.
And he's now just living suburban life, but it's just great. I mean, it's a little close to home at times, you know, because it reminds me of, you know, if we ever finished being musicians, what we'd have to do and things. But it's a great comedy series.
All right, I'll thank you for that tip. And you brought me a perfect idea for questions. So what about already some ideas? What do you want to do after music career? Because I spoke recently to Roger Glover, and he's talking, we might finish in a year, 2 or 3. And what can you do with a musician? He, you know, as a musician wants to play until he can hold the guitar in his hands. So what can else to be done?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to have to go the way of Lemmy, just play till we drop, because we're completely unemployable now.
Yeah.
I mean, 30 years of doing this, you know, it's next year it's 30 years. You know, what if we went to the job centre, what would we say? You know, what have you been doing for the last 30 years? You know, how do you explain that to someone? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, let me show you, honey. I'll bring you to the show and... Yeah, perfect for that. Well, as 30 years are coming, what are your plans for these celebrations and releasing something sexy for your long-term fans?
At the moment, we're just concentrating on this record. I'm sure our manager and our record label will have some great things in mind, like we'll play, you know, a 10-hour show in a little sweatbox club somewhere just to say happy birthday to ourselves, you know.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, personally, I'm not thinking about that right now. I'm just thinking, because we've only just finished recording this record, and I want to concentrate on this, and then, you know, next year, you know.
Absolutely. For the last question, I was whole time I was listening to this album, I was thinking about an idea how these sort of the projects influenced you. As when a musician is heavily involved in a certain one band, he concentrates on that band and expressing both melodic aspects and really darker styles of music. But when you're getting involved with Paradise Lost and Violent Fire, especially Violent Fire, because I saw footages of Obscene Extreme, dude, that's this hell of a festival, and you're expressing this really dark emotions, then how come that you can still find these emotions in Paradise Lost? You know, I'm just thinking out loud about a musician's idea to not spread sort of the sources of inspiration, but if, let's say an idea, if one musician sticks with one band, then he can both ideas. So are you not splitting your creativity too much, just out loud?
It is splitting myself, because I do try to keep Paradise Lost, the ideas for Paradise Lost and the ideas for Violent Fire very separate.
Yeah.
That's half the reason why I'm the vocalist in Violent Fire rather than the guitarist. You know, it gives me a clear line where one band starts and the other band ends. Also, I think the feeling you get from each band is totally different. I think the feeling you get from Paradise Lost is very melancholic and refined almost, but with Violent Fire it's the opposite. It's chaotic and angry and messy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The way I look at it is like Paradise Lost is really the grown-up me, and Violent Fire is the teenage me. You know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But couldn't you say that if you haven't had Violent Fire, you would include these wild, crazy, hardcore death metal ideas into Paradise Lost?
No, it couldn't happen, because with Paradise Lost it's all about the vibe, the feeling that you get, and those type of songs, that type of feeling that you get from Violent Fire just doesn't fit into what I think of as Paradise Lost.
Absolutely.
I guess, you know, Violent Fire was something that I'd thought of doing for many years, but I'd never bothered trying, and it was purely the death of my father that drove me to think, you know, why not do this? You know, life's too short. You know, what's the worst that can happen? You know,
absolutely. Greg, I would like to thank you for your time. Always a pleasure, and wish you all the best with new album and upcoming European tour, and having great time in Brno in October.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.